Good evening. I believe we're live. So, welcome everyone. I would like to welcome you along to the Power Platform Today show. This is the first, the pilot, and we have a good show for you. And we're gonna roll with it, see what happens. Hopefully, no glitches. First one, so we shall see. And with that, I'm going to roll the intro and bring in my guest. All right, Keegan, you are live. Welcome to the show. I'm getting there. Just settling my nerves. I'll drink some peppermint tea to help. Cheers. So, what I'm going to do first of all is just introduce the show. So, just talk through what this is, where this has come from. So, it's the Power Platform Today is the thought behind it. I see it as a bit of an entertainment show and a bit of the Power Platform. It's not just about the techie side of things, even though that's a lot of what I am. I like the techie side. I am a techie, as you well know, Keegan. We'll get a bit more into that later on. But really, this is about the community. It's about the Power Platform, the services, the stuff behind it, because it's an amazing platform. But for me, it's about the people and what the people do within the world of the Power Platform, because it still amazes me how much of is it a family feel? Not so much family feel, definitely a community feel we've built around this. And for me, it sort of started a little bit before COVID, but it was certainly in that sort of time frame. But we'll delve more into that. So that's a little bit of what this is. The format of the show is 30 to 40 minutes, depending on running order where we get to. It's going to be live streamed and it's going to be every week. That's the plan. That's what I want to do. Thank you very much. Oh, it's yeah. So that's the thinking behind it, and we'll get into some of the other stuff going into the future. So with that in mind, I am going to introduce you, Keegan. So thank you very much for being my first guest on the show. We've known each other for a few years now. You have been my boss. But it's interesting. But even though you were never my direct line manager, so to speak. And I've never seen you on that level, if that makes sense. I've always been friends with you more than that sort of hierarchy. But that's the sort of the background to us from a working perspective. But yeah, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience out there? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this wacky world.
Thank you. So introductions. I'm so used to doing an official.
Sorry, Keegan, I have to interrupt for just one moment. We had our first technical glitch, and amazingly, my audience has already told me they didn't hear you for anything you just said, which is such a shame because it was amazing. I heard it. It was wonderful for me.
Play back the transcript. Can they hear me now?
Yes, they should absolutely be able to hear you now.
That means I'm going to have to repeat and remember precisely what I just said.
Word for word, yes.
So, no, it's fine. What I was saying was just a huge congratulations to Reese, because for the people out there that don't know, this has been his brainchild for a really long time now, looking at bringing together the community and the people with the technology. And you said a moment ago about how this is the community is about family as well, and I totally agree with you. It's about the people inside the tech, but then outside of the tech, the people behind it, the families and the lives that we lead, and all kind of coming together to support one another. So I think This show is amazing, and just huge congratulations. So
Thank you.
my intro, I hadn't actually thought about this, and I'm so used to giving a work-based intro, so I'm going to try and not do it that way. So I'm Keegan. I've been in technology for about 12 years now. I've been in the Microsoft partner space for about 7 years, and prior to that, I was in telecommunications and sort of that sector. I currently work as a director of operations for a strategic Microsoft partner. And I also do a bit of consulting around marketing and business strategy. I, like I say, come from kind of a Microsoft partner background. I've also worked with ISVs. And yeah, I describe myself sometimes as a bit of a Swiss knife in that I have multi facets. So I came in through a psychology degree, into marketing, into running a power platform practice,
Jeez.
into more kind of cloud services, and now I'm into the world of operations. So my journey's been a bit like this, but
That is wavy.
it is wavy, but it's been a great learning experience, and I've met so many incredible people and mentors and along the way. So I would say I wouldn't be where I am today had it not been for this community that you are advocating for today.
So that is something I've noticed a lot. The people I've spoken to over the years. So I've now been working with the Power Platform, started with Dynamics CRM back in the transition from 4 to 2011. That's when I got into it. I started off as essentially an end user of the platform. And from that, I realized that actually this was my way to get into the techie world of actual IT. I've been trying to do it for a while. Lots of story there, I'm sure I'll go into in future ones. But I kind of fell into it. The Power Platform just became a thing that I did. And I was talking to someone the other day about this. I feel I stumbled into the career that I'm in. I don't necessarily think that stumbling is a bad thing. I've got to where I have by stumbling along. I've not had a plan. And it's been amazing how many people I've spoken to have had the similar experience. So they've not been, it's not a software developer's world. It's not an analyst's world. It's somewhere in between. It's this amazing thing that people stumble onto. And I actually think that a lot of people that make this a career have done so because they've been passionate about what they've done, not necessarily because they've studied it. That's the interesting thing. And so that's the one I want to delve a little bit more into your experience and how you've got to the place that you have, how you've managed to meander your way to there. Because I know that there was quite a big part of your background was marketing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I just agree with you. I don't think people always need a plan. I'm quite a meticulous planner and organizer, as you know. So I will generally have like a longer term plan, but I'm a big believer of almost going where the wind takes you. And I don't think we should be afraid to seize opportunities and fall into something like Power Platform when we see the market need for it, when we are inspired and passionate about the technologies and about the people that we're meeting along the way. I think it's the best way to establish your career path. And what's the worst that can happen, right? You go down a path, you learn new skills, you develop, and then you go, actually, I really enjoyed that couple of years, but I'm going to swerve back to this path because I feel it's more for me. It's all growth, I think. So my entry into Power Platform was kind of a chosen one, actually. Can you hear my dog behind me? We're live streaming and she is making some kind of noises. Okay, good.
I can't hear anything.
If she carries on, we might have guest number 3 up on my lap in a moment. Yes, so it was kind of a chosen one because I studied marketing postgraduate and wanted to kind of further my career from telecommunications into, I guess, just a broader IT sector. And I ended up working for an ISV provider, but they weren't Microsoft specific. They did Microsoft, Salesforce. It was a CTI solution that attached to a CRM system. So it was like Zoho CRM. I'm trying to think now of all the different ones that we work with, but a plethora.
Yeah.
But kind of leading more on the Microsoft and Salesforce partner front. And I actually became a Salesforce user group leader and drove the charge there. And then I went to my first Microsoft event, which was the Scottish Summit, the first year.
Ah, right.
That was my very first Microsoft event. And I remember sitting in a room and a Mr. Christopher Huntingford and a Mr. William Dorrington. At that time, they were with Hitachi. They stood at the front and they did their magical demonstrations of creating something. I can't even remember what it was, but they were using Power Platform. They were talking about how these are Lego blocks that you can add into your ecosystem, and they bring everything together. And they showed this amazing demo, and I was just blown away.
Yeah.
I'd already kind of immersed myself in the world of Salesforce, and they have some really strong products, I think, as well. But the power of the Power Platform, for lack of a better term, the way that it just brings all of your technology ecosystem together and and it acts as those building blocks. I just found it incredible because it's powerful and it allows ordinary people within businesses like me to just be empowered and do more.
Yeah.
It allows huge enterprises to kind of scale and bring together all of their technology infrastructure. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So at that point, after that event, I said to myself, I want to be in the world of Microsoft. I don't want to play in these other pools anymore. This is my place.
Yep.
And as I learned more and more about the Microsoft products, I was just constantly leaning into Power Platform thinking, yeah, but this is so cool. So yeah, I was partner marketing manager. So I was kind of onboarding Microsoft partners to work with alongside the ISV, but knew at that point, this is where I want to take my path.
Yeah, interesting, really interesting. It's also interesting you mentioned there, Chris and Will, they're stalwarts of the community. Certainly anyone out there listening will probably have come across Chris Huntingford or William Darrington at some point, especially with their more recent podcast series. That's quite interesting out there. And interestingly as well, I'm saying interesting too much, but fascinatingly, they were, well, certainly Chris was a bit of my intro to the community as well. So mine was the year before because I was at Dublin for, what was it then? It was Dynamics 365 Saturday, I think they called it.
I went to Dublin. Wasn't the Scottish Summit the year before, and then it was Dublin?
Scottish Summit came after. So Dublin was first. At least the original Saturday that I went to.
I must have done like the second Dublin then.
Because the reason I went to that was specifically I was going to meet with the John, I think it is, the guy that runs North 52. North 52 is a fantastic product. It really is. Really, really interesting. I've been working with it at a partner beforehand, and I was looking for a job. So I went over there to get a job, but part of it was also to go to the conference, and through that I met Mark and Ian, who set up the Scottish Summit. They were there with Claire Carmichael. Again, I met them all on the first day. They suggested that I should speak at Scottish Summit. That's why I know the Scottish Summit came after. That's how it all sort of ended. So that first that first Scottish Summit was the first time I spoke at an event, and so it's got a bit of a happy place in my memory.
Oh my gosh, Scottish Summit has got so much, like so many people are so grateful for that event because there was the Dynamic Saturdays were amazing events, and they were big scale as well. I remember there being a lot of people at those, but then suddenly Scottish Summit came in with all the branding and the promotion, and it just like made it huge and elevated the community events as we know it, and then inspired, obviously, along came the South Coast Summit, and we're only talking UK events, and then up sprang Nordic Summit, and now we've got like Colour Cloud in Hamburg and all these events, and they've all kind of sprung up through, I think, Dynamics 365 Saturdays originally, and then Scottish Summit. So
yeah, that was absolutely the driving force. And then I don't know what happened in the background. So one thing about me, it's quite interesting to do this because I want to get more involved in the wider community and speak to more people. I know a bunch of different people, but I want to do more and speak to more people and get a bit more color filled in my memory, let's say, because that's an interesting thing. I know that the Dynamic 365 Saturdays existed, and I know Scottish Summit came from that in many ways. There was some connection between the two in terms of some setup that went with it, and Mark and Ian kind of ran with that, and then South Coast very much took a leaf out of Scottish Summit.
And then they merged.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a golden age of community events, let's say. So that brings us quite nicely to one of the first things that I want to do in the show as a regular thing. So I'm going to roll in the business, as they say, a VT. So it's basically a video, a pre-recorded video. Now, for those out there in the audience, I really am looking for people to record these and send them to me. I want to actually showcase videos in future in this sort of slot, and it's a 7 to 10 minute video, and it can be on any topic that you want around the Power Platform. Ideally, I mean, it would be interesting to have Robot Wars, but something in the Power Platform preferably.
If you get Chris on this show, it will be Robot Wars. That's it. You've set that up now.
Robot Wars for Chris. We'll see. I will beg, borrow, and steal it from everyone. But for the first one, it is going to be myself talking about, interestingly enough, a user group. So I'm going to roll that now. So please do enjoy that, and I will get the techie started. So I have to connect the dots here.
I've seen your technical setup on the back end. This is not simple. So I am very impressed by what you're doing right now.
It's I've definitely overcomplicated it for myself, but that's part of the fun. So I'm going to roll video, and the interesting thing here for the audience out there, Keegan is going to watch this at the same time. So this is where it's going to be fun. So enjoy this admittedly longer than expected segment. Hello. Last week I attended the SPUG user group. So that's the Scottish Power Platform user group. It was held in Glasgow, and they've been running this now for, I think, many months, if not a couple of years, I think. It's the third one I've attended, the second one in person, one I've attended virtually. So they mix it up a bit, and they also do different locations around Scotland. So this one was in Glasgow. It was last Tuesday on the 25th of February. And it was at the Bridgell offices in central Glasgow, West End, I think it was. I don't know Glasgow very well, but Google got me there. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience attending and also why I think you should go in future. So the event was starting 6 p.m., finishes 9 p.m. It is fronted by Stuart, Charlie, Rennie, and Josh. So the four of them were certainly there, making sure that everything ran. And that's really good. It helps for user groups to have multiple people actually there supporting this. I've attended many in the past, and some are better than others in terms of organization. So this is definitely one of the better ones. So I arrived about 10 minutes to 6, just before, just due to traffic, fun and games. I wasn't entirely sure how to get in when I first got there. The actual building that it was in was, I mean, it was well located. I could understand where it was, but just finding the door initially was a little bit of a nervous moment. But I found it, got to the glass door. It was locked, but Rani was on hand to let me in. And so that is one of the first points for organization. Absolutely having someone on point at the door to let you in is critical for these things. Signposting to get to the door might have been useful, but to be honest, it was pretty easy to find. So once I got there, there were a few people who had already arrived, and having a look around the room, I noticed there was a couple of people that I know within the community that I've known for a while, but haven't actually seen for a while. So that was really nice. And that is one of the big pluses for user group, especially in person attendance, is the chance to catch up with people that you may know and haven't seen for a while. So that was really good. So went down, sat next to him and started chatting, as you do. Before long, Charlie started the event. So he got up and told everyone what was happening. And the first speaker up was Stuart Baxter, and he was talking about the GDS, the Government Design System or Service. To be honest, difficult to say what exactly It means, so he was talking about GDS and the pitfalls and the things to keep in mind around that design system. Now, if you don't know GDS and what it is, it's a design service principle. There's a whole bunch of stuff around it that the government has worked on for many years in their digital services team. There's a framework, there's design principles, there's lots. So Stuart was focused very much on some of the principles and how they might apply to Canvas apps. His pain came across. He's obviously implemented this in Canvas apps, and that was quite useful to see and listen to. That was quite an interesting talk on GDS. I know of it. I've seen it before. I've not actually had to go through the pain of implementing yet, but it certainly was interesting to be reminded of that, and did some research afterwards as well. So that was the first topic. Then came Damien Bird, who is, I believe, a solution architect or a technical architect at Microsoft. He's been there for a few years now, well known within the community. I've known him from various conferences over the years, and he was talking about Copilot. What else? So he was doing a live demo of building a Copilot agent and showing how it works and also the differences between the various Copilot offerings from Microsoft. Because that's one of the things. I've not spent too much time with AI yet. I know everyone's talking about it, and I have to spend more time with it. But that was my first proper demo of watching it, funnily enough. And it was certainly fascinating to see how quickly he was able to build something that would do something. In this case, the example was an agent that would take some conversation and would send an email. And a nice little touch was that he used the Bridgel website. That was the offices that we're at. He used that as a knowledge source for the agent. So he basically created an agent that would take a prompt along the lines of, tell me what Bridgel does and send me an email about it. And so he hooked up an email action. So it was really interesting to go through that. He's obviously done this demo a number of times. He was polished. He went through it well. There were some pain points that he highlighted from previous running of the demos. Uh, so that was really, really interesting, really slick. It all worked, surprisingly. Live demos don't always work, so that was good to see. And also fascinating. Still struggling with the whole AI thing. I think I've not found a particular use case in implementations yet, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. I just don't know it enough. So that was a really interesting presentation. His was actually split over the food. So pizza arrived halfway through his presentation. So we went off, had food, and then came back for the second half of the presentation. Uh, Domino's pizzas. It's pretty much the standard for user groups these days. So that was tasty and a nice little break. Good chit chat in between, and then he finished off his session, and then we went on to the third speaker, and that was Keith Atherton, who is, I think it's Atherton. I should probably have notes in front of me. Apologies if I haven't got that right. He is a longtime MVP. He's actually based in Glasgow, I believe, as well, which is interesting. And he was talking about responsive design, specifically within Canvas and Power Apps. So that's an interesting um, idea, design principle of web development, certainly. It is certainly capable to do that within Canvas apps, and you should definitely be focused on it. I knew a little bit about it already before because I've done web development for a while, and certainly have done responsive designed Canvas apps, and obviously know of the model-driven side because that's my background is definitely model-driven power platform, power apps. So not as much in that was new to me, but his presentation style was fantastic. He was really good. You could tell he's done this a number of times, speaking like that at least. And I really liked the fact that he used an actual Canvas app to demo the principles as well as to kind of do the presentation. I've seen people do that kind of thing in the past. So rather than use PowerPoint, use actual apps. I quite like that. It was a nice little touch. And you could tell he's put a lot of prep into this beforehand, and he has a lot of knowledge on it. So that was a really good session as well. So that rounded out the three sessions. We finished up at 9 o'clock. Now the event's 6 till 9, quite a long time for a user group, but they had good speakers, good content. It didn't feel like any of it was a drag. Uh, Finished on the dot, and then afterwards we went to King Tut's, just across the road from where the venue was. Had a
few drinks with people. It's a good thing with user groups is to catch up with people at the event. There's always something afterwards. I definitely recommend you do that. It's good to catch up with people, but also to meet new people. That's how we mingle in this community. So after that, the others went on to drink elsewhere. I don't know where they went, because at that point I went home. I on the East Coast, so I had to get back across the M8. So thoroughly enjoyed it. Highly recommend that you go to the next user group, whether it's the Scottish Power Platform user group, next one being the 25th of March in Glasgow again, or a local one to you. There are lots of user groups around the UK, so do a search, find one close to you, and get there. It's really, really interesting. You always find something new. There's always something in the presentations that you haven't known before, or maybe it's a reminder. It's really good to stay on top of these things, but also to meet other people in the community. That's what we're here for. So highly recommend it. There's also virtual ones. The High Five Power Platform High Five community is one that's just recently started. So Keith and Sarah run that one. That's really good as well. So that's purely virtual. So if you can't get to one in person, that's a good alternative as well. They're not as good for the networking side, I find, because in person you just have more ability to be able to actually talk to someone in person, one-on-one. You can't do that in a virtual setting, or it's much, much harder. So that's one thing that is missing from a virtual world. However, Spug, really, really good, really well organized. Thanks go out to the organizers on it, and I'll definitely be there at the next one, provided I can get child cover. It's always the way, but I will certainly try my hardest. So 25th of March, back in Glasgow. Hope to see you there.
All right, that's Keegan. We're back on. Thank you very much for that, Reese, myself. So, like I said before, yes, like I said before, I'm looking for submissions for that little segment. We'll play with it over time. Ideally, we'll get a few of those in the show. If we can get them down to 5 minutes, then it'll be quite good to do that. But Keegan, what do you think in terms of user groups? What are your thoughts around that? Because I know you're involved in at least one big one, which I'm opening the floor for you to talk about.
Opening the floor. Reese, can I try and see your face again on screen, please? Because right now I can see a cone and I just can't have a conversation with a cone. You're way more interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry to segue there. And also a second segue. I got a little visitor. So if you see anything on my lap, that
is getting clipped up right there.
Do you know the funny thing is I was actually at another user group the other day, and it was the first time I'd heard the acronym SPUG. It is SPUG, right? Or is it SPUG?
It is SPUG.
SPUG. And someone said to me, "Oh, I love the SPUG group." I was like, "Excuse me, are you okay?" Like, I thought, is there something stuck in your throat? What are you saying? I knew of the user group, I just never heard the acronym, and I think it's brilliant. It's very memorable. Yes, so the user group I was actually at, and they were sharing how good SPUG is, was the Bletchley AI user group. And that's in Milton Keynes. Mm-hmm. That takes place every month, and I think it's a brilliant event. It has a really good turnout every time, and I know you're probably leading to this. The exciting thing about this last event is that they announced that we are now pushing the AI user group nationally, and I am on the national committee to help drive that forward.
Yay!
So, you thanked yourself, so I'm going to round of applause myself.
And so you should.
I mean, it's very, very early days at the moment, but we already have interest. Well, we've got a committee ready for Liverpool, and what we're doing at the moment is road mapping the key areas nationally where we'd like to launch the group. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with that comes, the requirement for volunteers that are going to drive it forward. So, shameless plug. Bletchley AI user group are looking for volunteers to drive it forward in your local area. But I think that every user group is unique in what it brings to its local community.
Yeah.
I think Bletchley is particularly special because what Bletchley has done, and I call it the magic of Bletchley, not only has it located, at Bletchley Park, where Turing and just everything, AI originated. But also they've really tapped into their local community. And when you go, the audience members are people from the Microsoft technology community, but they're also people from local businesses.
Yeah.
They're also engaged with the local council. So they're kind of working through the community to open it up to a wider audience. And I think that there is value for everybody in that, because you've got different levels of ability attending the user group. So the content's very varied. You've got technologists learning off of end users that are at different skill level, end users learning about what's going on in the market, business owners learning about innovations and potential areas for investment. And I just think it's brilliant. Another community that I'm also involved in, partially, is the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform user group. And they have very successfully rolled out their user groups nationally. They've got over 10 user groups nationally. They have a virtual user group, and 3 or 4 times a year they do like an all-day event. So the last one was London. Actually, tomorrow is the Manchester event, first time in Manchester, and they're kind of pushing more of those out. So that's a really great example of what we were talking about a moment ago, really.
Yeah.
And a community initiative can start with an idea, like today's show. And from there, it picks up traction and it picks up speed. And I think it does that because people are so genuinely passionate and people want to be involved because they want to see it grow. They want to share ideas and inspiration. They want to build a network of like-minded people, and it just snowballs. So I'm really excited for Bletchley and where it's kind of going to go.
Yeah, every user group, every conference, every show like this, every one of these lives and dies on audience and participation. I mean, that's what it is. So the user group at Bletchley, I see a lot of chat on LinkedIn around that, and I've seen some of the videos. You definitely get some good attendance on it. I know it's the latest and greatest topic. There's an element of that, and it's Bletchley Park. I mean, you can choose a better location in many ways. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of what happens there. And on the other side, the user group, the national one, that's Bibby, right? Andrew, Bibby and team.
Yeah, there's actually a big team around it. Because there's like the national team, there's about 6 or 7. There's Matt Beard, Andrew Bibby, Trisha Sinclair, Feridun Kadir. There's just a bunch of them.
Yeah.
6 or 7. And then each regional user group has their own organizing team as well, of 2 or 3 people. I think like there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to doing any of these things, and people do it outside of their day job, which shows how passionate people are.
Yeah.
And I just want to say on the Bletchley AI chat, I cannot take credit for where it's got to at all. Stephanie and Lewis have been driving that forward, and Chris Huntingford, and I think one other. I've only just joined to help with the national effort, kind of franchising the model, I guess. But they've done an incredible job. And yeah, it's just such a huge team of people and a huge effort, but it's so worth it because look at where we started today's show, the memories that we have, the careers that we end up taking, the friends that we make, they're all off the back of these community events that, I don't know, I think it sounds really cheesy, but I think they genuinely like change people's lives. They've changed my life.
I think that is a big part of it, because there's a couple of ways in my mind that can happen. The basic one is just sheer networking. If you get out there and you talk to people, you get to know what other companies are out there, what other jobs are out there, what people are doing. If you don't do that, then how would you know? How would you find out? So just experiencing other people and other roles and other passion and other thoughts can grow your own mind. It's the same as the idea of every young person in my mind should travel. I think it's important that you go out and you experience the world, because if you don't, how can you put it into context? You need to, it broadens your horizons. So I think that's the first thing, and the simplest thing is just networking. But the other thing is, it is that passion, and it's it's getting a feel for something that you may not have even thought of. And then suddenly someone's talking about it, they're talking passionately about it, and you pick up little things. Like even just at Spug there, when Stuart was talking about GDS. Now, GDS is the Global Design System. It's basically a framework on design standards for how you do digital services. The government's put in massive amount of investment into that. It's an interesting framework. It really is. I've known of it in the past. But the fact that he was talking about it and actually how he's implemented it in a Canvas app is just a thing I haven't experienced before. So that now means the next time someone brings it up in my role or any other time, I can say, I know a little bit about that. I understand it.
You'll have a grounding point. It's like, I agree with you, it's exposure. Like, I obviously came in through the door of marketing, went to the first Microsoft events, learned about Power Platform, excuse me. And from there on, even to this day, I get so much exposure to ways of doing things and to technologies that I didn't even know existed, or different ways to optimize the implementation effort and that sort of thing. I mean, it sounds like a real far reach to say she went from marketing to being a director of a Power Platform practice. How did she go from there to there? But it's the exposure of information and the exposure of people as well, because there's always somebody you can ask a question to, and there's always different levels of content. So if the content sometimes goes a bit over your head, you can say, hang on a sec, Reese, what was that bit all about? Can you just explain that to me?
Yeah.
And so I agree with you on the networking piece and the kind of passion sharing, but just it's almost like subconscious learning sometimes. Just by being in the room, you're taking on information at a subconscious level that you would never normally expose yourself to. And so I think it's just worthwhile being there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just be there, and you will get benefit from it, even without kind of an actionable plan of how you're going to do that.
And quite often you get pizza. So, I mean, win-win.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Everyone loves the food.
Everyone loves the food, yes. And with that, we are coming up to soon be 40 minutes. Now, that means that basically we're almost done. But there's one thing I do want to do. I've seen other people. I know, boo. That's all right. I'm going to get you back on eventually. I love the idea of a quick fire round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a bunch of random questions, and I want you to give me your answer as quickly as you can in terms of the first thing that comes to mind, ideally.
Oh, it's one of those.
It is. That's what I want.
I'm dreading this. You do know
Excellent.
I have ADHD, right? We do not know what's going to come out.
Oh, all the better. All right, excellent. Let's start.
The brain at its most primal. Okay, let's do this.
We'll start simple. So, favorite Power Platform service.
Favorite Power Platform service? Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I can't even think.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh at this. It's just the lovely torture.
I don't know. I like portals, even though
portals,
pages.
good choice. I do enjoy the pages.
Yeah, I just know that they're a lot of work, but you can do some really good stuff when the work's put in.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Case in point, I've seen what you've done with Power Pages.
I do very much enjoy Power Pages. That was my first topic at Scottish Summit. What I learned from Power Portal.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. My
There
first one, top 10 tips I got from it. Favorite conference? It's like asking what's your favorite child?
South Coast Summit, actually.
That was good fun.
I love the setup. Do you know what I love? I get really cold. Sounds weird. I love the fact that it's all housed in one place, because I don't have to move from building. There's a little movement outside, but it's such a nice location. Everybody's together, so the camaraderie really feels strong.
Yeah.
South Coast. Oh, and they do really cool expos with like free ice cream and like surf machines and like that's like level up to, cool stuff.
Yeah, they have good space for that. Favorite color?
Pink.
Ooh, pink. Very nice. As in Barbie pink or like subdued pink? I don't know what the other flavors
are. More of a chilled out pink. And actually, it's my favourite colour because it's my husband's favourite colour. So I guess it's like the colour of love.
Ooh,
cheesy, but true.
Nice, very nice. Well, that takes us to the last music you can remember listening to.
Oh my gosh, just before this, I was actually listening to karaoke songs of The Pretty Reckless and Paramore and Evanescence.
What? Right. Okay. So we have an audience. We have not even got to the fact that Keegan sings. There's a whole other part there to get into. But the fact you mentioned Pretty Reckless is what they're one of my favorite bands. I've seen them live in
Really?
Glasgow.
Do you see? So I don't know them that well, but I know their songs. But I'd like to try and sing their songs.
Nice.
Not seen them live or anything like that. But Evanescence and Paramore are definitely up there for me.
Yeah, very much so. Excellent. Podcast or TV?
TV. Do you know what's weird? I don't know if it's because my brain's so busy. If I try and do an audiobook or anything auditory, my brain starts wandering and I can't focus my mind in on it. I almost need like visual cues to keep me on point. And when I don't know if it's a neurodiversity thing, but when I am on a meeting, I take a lot of notes. And I think people think I'm just really like over organized. It's actually because putting them visually on a page helps me retain the information because I'm actively doing something. I don't even look at the notes afterwards. It's the action of doing it that retains the information.
A little inside baseball there, because to be honest, I've been on meetings with you and you've been taking copious notes, and I just thought that was just phenomenal organization, but it is.
It's just so it sinks in. And then the funny thing is, because it sinks in so well, it like compartmentalizes in my brain. I don't need the notes quite often. And now obviously we've got Copilot, because it's funny. People go, switch on Copilot. Don't worry, Keegan, don't take notes. And I'm like, no, I still will. And they always think I'm a bit strange, but it's because it solidifies it in my brain.
It's the act of doing. Interesting. All right. If you had 2 hours with no other responsibility, nothing, no one there, no one badgering you, nothing, what would you do?
Spa day. Oh, I've got 4 children. Bring me the spa day.
Oh, a quick one off the back of that then. What's your favorite thing at the spa?
Massage.
Okay, I've had a couple of massages. I have to say I've not been into it. For me, if I go to a spa type thing, it is the cold plunge. I love cold plunge.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, I love it. It just feels good. Like when you first get in, it's freezing, obviously, but as soon as you get out, that feeling is just invigorating. I love it. I absolutely. If I could have one at my house, I would have one.
Have you heard of the Wim Hof method? There's like a Wim Hof, the guy's called Wim Hof. I'm sure that's his name. And part of his methodology for kind of refreshing yourself, like staying the best version of yourself, is to take loads of multivitamins that you kind of do yourself, natural. But he says have a cold shower every single day. Might be something to look into. I
think I have. So Tim Ferriss is someone I have followed a lot of his advice in the past, and he has talked about cold showers. The effect of cold therapy is it's very, very good good for you. But even just having a cold shower, freezing cold shower, and I did do it for a while. I actually would have. So what I would do is I have my normal shower, and then I turn it down to the lowest setting I could for the last sort of 3 or 4 minutes. But I actually find a cold shower is harder than cold plunge, because the fact that the cold moves on you. Whereas if you're in a cold plunge, you just get into the water and you sit there, it's fine. But in a shower, it's kind of, it's more shocking, let's say.
Honestly, I cannot think of anything worse, Reese. Like, this is my worst nightmare.
All right, next one. Books or audiobooks? I think we've already got the answer to that one.
Books, yeah, it has to be visual.
Glass half full or glass half empty?
Always full. If I'm acting half empty, there's something wrong. Like, I just think, I believe in positive manifestation. I'm kind of a spiritual person. And I really think that just the psychology of it, even if ignore the spiritual stuff for a moment, but just the psychology of, if you set your mind to do something, then you're going to achieve it, and you're going to make incremental improvements, the 1% every day. You're going to have kind of a planned outlook. It's like when we talk to businesses about setting a strategy and a kind of, goal setting. When it's in mind, you naturally work towards it. If you don't have anything in mind, you're not going to. So you have to be positive, manifest the things that you want, and you will naturally work towards them.
Yeah, excellent. Last one. If you won £1 million, what would you spend it on?
Oh.
Now
I would.
First thought. So what would be what's the first thought? Because there's the serious one of, pay off the house, put some money in savings, go on holiday.
I mean, if first thought was a mega house for us and our family with a swimming pool, and it is, it is actually a true thought, because what I think is so valuable is time and quality of time. Now, we surround ourselves with a lot of like-minded people who are so passionate that we generally work a lot of hours, and quite often there's a lot of that that's through choice as well, I think. And we do the extra voluntary stuff because it kind of, it drives us, we thrive off of it. But then the time that I do then get with my family, I always want that to be quality. So if there's more space and there's more things to do together, like a cinema room and a swimming pool, it's just the quality of it. So it would be that.
Yeah, excellent. Well, on that note, thank you very much, Keegan, for your time. It's been wonderful. You've been the perfect guest for my pilot. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
If the people out there want to get in touch with you, want to follow anything that you're doing, what's the best way to get a hold of you, follow you? Where should they go?
Definitely LinkedIn, and I'm now trying to remember what my LinkedIn name is, because I recently got married. I think it's Keegan-Chambers. If it's not, it's going to be 5 minutes after this call. Keegan Chambers on LinkedIn is definitely the best way, and that's where I post my updates.
Wonderful. All right. Well, for those out there in the audience, thank you very much for attending today. I hope you enjoyed that. I will be back next week, same time, 9 o'clock. With another guest and another video of some description. And again, it just leaves me with one last thank you, Keegan. Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Reece.
And we're going to end it